the WWE Draft. You watched SmackDown this week?
Yes, I did.
Were you, just overcome with excitement?
I watched it. I watched it last week. No, I wasn't. I've never been a fan of the draft. It sounds great, but I think they need to handle it a different way. I don't know why they would even have a draft because, see, the draft works in college football to pro football because you have amateurs. And All-American football players going into the pros. Here you have pros just going back and forth. They do it all the time anyway. So to me, it's not a big deal. And I don't see the excitement in it. And actually, I was disappointed in the draft because I have this other podcast I do for Sportskeeda, and it's called Smack Back, I think. It's the name of it.
Is it Smack Talk?
Yeah, I think it is Smack Talk. I never have gotten the name right. But it's on the Sportskeeda network. And you can find it if you look at Sportskeeda. You can find I have two co-hosts there, and they're always correcting me because, those things like details and stuff like that, they kind of escape me. But I think SmackDown had a good flow going, and they took one of the stars away, and that was Rhea Ripley. I didn't like her leaving. And who went to SmackDown?
I'm going to give you the full list. Well, I'm going to give you the full list of round 1 and round 2 drafts. So these are the important people as far as the WWE office is concerned. SmackDown gets Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa with Paul Heyman, Bianca Belair, Street Profits, Edge, Austin Theory, Charlotte Flair, the Usos, and the Latino World Order, which comprises of Rey Mysterio and 4 other people. Do you want me to give you Raw?
That's SmackDown.
That's SmackDown. I'll give you Raw. Cody Rhodes, Becky Lynch, Imperium. That's Gunther, Ludwig Kaiser, and Giovanni Vinci. That's the third one that none of us can ever remember his name. Matt Riddle, Rhea Ripley, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, and Judgment Day.
Well, I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens should have stayed at SmackDown. They should keep their angle intact on SmackDown because it's the same company. They can take it back and forth anyway. So keep their main competitors. To me, this is to me, I would keep them on the same show. Mm-hmm. Also, SmackDown losing Gunther to Raw. It may be a good thing because now he'll have different opponents. Because I am a huge, huge Gunther fan. And I think that, and he may have gone just about as far as he can go on SmackDown at this point. So I'm happy. I'm going to miss him. So let him spread his wings over there on Raw and see what he does there. Because and they are people who watch Raw exclusively, and they are people who watch SmackDown exclusively, and the ones on Raw may not have seen Gunther. So what is Gunther's background? He's from Austria, correct?
He is from Austria, yeah. As far as I know with Gunther Volta, is he resisted going to WWE for years, or at least full-time, because I think he just thought he'd just be too homesick or something. So This last couple of years, now he's on the main roster. He's gotten over that somehow, and he's just decided to go for it, and he seems to be getting rewarded handsomely with the booking so far.
He just got married too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he got married to some girl, some lady. I hope. You never can tell these days. But he just got married to somebody. And I think she was on NXT. What do they call the NXT in England?
Nothing anymore. It was NXT UK, and now that's been shut down.
I think that's where he met her. And I think she has quit now. I think she got hurt or something. But they had a clip, and I think some people probably saw it, of Gunther dancing with his bride, which was hilarious, really. But they look very much in love, and I'm happy for him but I hate to lose him from SmackDown to Raw because, and you have all these armchair bookers, but I think he will have the World Championship one day, probably within the next couple of years, I would think. Mm-hmm. Because his style is, who calls it flippity? Somebody calls it that. I forgot who on WWE roster calls it that flippity style. That's the farthest thing from Gunther's style. Gunther, he'll just beat the living crap out of you. And the people watch it because it is brutal. And at Clash at the Castle, Gunther and Sheamus, they burn it down. Mm-hmm. And the three-way they had on I think the latest pay-per-view, they burned it down too on WrestleMania. It was Drew and Sheamus in a three-way. And I'm not a fan of three-ways, but that was a good one. But I think I didn't like the Gunther. Bianca Belair, I'm a fan of hers too. But I've already kind of had my fill with her because she was on SmackDown. So if I'm looking at the two brands, who I think came out better on top, I think probably SmackDown did. I'm printing something back here. So if you hear that, that's just my printer. That's Vince. That's Vince sending me something.
It's facts.
Yeah. It's a fact. It's the facts with facts on it. And Vince said, "Hey, pal, don't forget to mention this." Okay.
Do you know what I've just realised is Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, the Usos, the entire Bloodline's on SmackDown. I've only just realised because I knew Cody Rhodes was on Raw now, but also so's Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So now that's all of Roman Reigns' feuds that he's been having for the last 7-8 months, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now that's all just bookended. That's the act closed on that, and now Roman Reigns, who's barely ever seen. Or barely ever wrestles, now has to come up with an entirely new batch of feuds.
That's why I don't like it. Because now you got to do a reset. And I hate to be on that creative team. Now they're saying, this is over there and this is over here. And isn't Roman in a position where he can go back and forth?
No. But Brock Lesnar is, apparently.
I don't get it.
No.
Well, again, all I can do is sit back and watch what they're doing and see if I like it. But it's not up to me to be the auditor of the shows. It's up to the fans to see if they like what they're doing, and they pay tremendous attention to at least bit of a drop in the ratings or a movement in the ratings. Because if it drops 1/10 of a point, they got to figure out a reason for it. And whether they figure out a reason or not, it's probably not the reason, but they at least address it in the meetings.
I'm going to give you
I'm going to tell you, one of the worst appreciated jobs in the wrestling business is on the creative team, on the writing team. Because and I've said this before, when the territory is up or when the company is up, it's the talent. Oh, it's great. Those guys are. But when it's down, who do the wrestlers blame it on? The bookers, the writers, they're the shits. So when it's up, the writers don't get any credit. When it's down, they take all the blame.
Hey, when you were a booker, what promotion or territory did you feel most valued?
Puerto Rico, because it was all my stuff.
Which one though? IWA or Carlos?
The second one, IWA. Because you know how big the creative team was?
You?
One person. It was me. I would go out on the beach. This is how I booked it. I'd go out on the beach, take me a bottle of Malibu rum, and I'd set it down, and I'd stay there a couple of hours, 3 hours, whatever. And it's a lot of people don't know this, but Senor Malibu was very, very smart. He had a lot of great ideas on that beach, and I took it back to my little apartment that overlooked the beach, and then I would write down all the things he would tell me. But guess who I had to run it by? Nobody. So nobody could talk me out of it, or nobody could put anything with it. And I went, and for 2 years down there, I did record business. I mean, we'd go to those big shows. I would just bring guys in sometimes just to make it look like a big show. They weren't involved in anything. I'd put them in the third or fourth match. It just looked like a big show. This guy was putting a little icing on the cake, and we'd go to those big stadiums, and we do 15, 16, 17,000, whatever of a hole sometimes. And that's the way I booked it down there. But I felt more appreciated there than probably anywhere else, because and I got paid pretty well for that. I would get the bonuses, and I would get this, and for Puerto Rico, I only worked 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And then I would write the show out, and I would give it to my assistant, who actually learned how to put video packages together. And when he was learning that, he did some great stuff. And sometimes on the big shows, I would end the show with a big long musical video package. And when I would get to the stadium I'd get there about 5:00. There'd be a line at 5:00 to get in. And that's how I knew it was going to be a good house. If they were lining up 3 hours, 3 hours and a half, and in Puerto Rican time, 8:30 means like 9:17. It can mean anything. They call it Puerto Rican time. So, but I enjoyed it there, and I didn't have to run anything by anybody, which is the way I liked it.
Well, unfortunately, now everybody's got to run everything by Vince again, and it seems that this draft, sorry, we're back on the draft, is sort of indicative of Vince McMahon very much sticking his oar back into creative, because quite a lot of things don't make sense. So I'm going to read you some things. If you want to comment on them, you just interrupt me. Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair and SmackDown Women's Champion Rhea Ripley to Raw. They're both the champions, and apparently this also happened 2 years ago with Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair, and they just swapped titles. So, there you go. There's your title runs ended, and now you've just got to start a new one with the opposite belt. That was weird. On NXT yesterday, as we record this, NXT Women's Tag Team Champions Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn wrestled and defeated Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, who are all four are getting called up to the main roster. Yet on their last night, exactly. What's the purpose there?
I have no idea. Well, like I said, I wasn't excited about the draft to begin with. Maybe when they first did the draft, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
2002. And I'll tell you what the difference
20 years ago.
I'll tell you what the difference is back then that they had probably, including Vince, 4 all-time megastars, or maybe with the NWO as well. So you had Austin, Rock, Hogan, Vince McMahon, the NWO, Ric Flair, bunch of Undertaker, Jericho, Kane, a million of them. And you had enough megastars like Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, who needed some of the stars to filter away, and then John Cena will come in soon. Edge, Rey Mysterio made his debut a month after the first. You had all these megastars and soon to be superstars as well. That it actually sort of made sense, and it was like the replacement Raw versus Nitro ended up sort of being Raw versus SmackDown. They sort of fostered that genuine, like tried to foster like a genuine rivalry between the blue and the red team in the writing room as well as it made sense then. I'm not so much, not sure so much.
I don't
now.
think it. No, it doesn't. I don't get it. What was the ratings for SmackDown?
SmackDown was up, Raw was down. Okay. So, or this past Raw was down, which I don't think there was a draft. But anyway, it seemed to do okay for a 1 week bump. Let me give you a couple more. Speaking of tag teams, it was threatened that nobody was safe and tag teams could be split up, which also makes no sense because you could take a tag team as a tag team. So why would you only take one of the tag team when you've got the other one for free? So the jeopardy wasn't really there. Free agents, Omos, Mustafa Ali, Dolph Ziggler, Von Wagner. But they're not free agents. They just can't figure out what brand they want to put them on, so they just didn't even include them in the draft at all.
Nobody wanted them. They'd be taken in the last round as a free agent, but nobody wants them.
Drafting wrestlers in rounds for the most part. This is another point I made. Really exposes the pecking order as far as how important they are in the eyes of the company itself, I think. So, like poor old Shinsuke Nakamura being drafted in the 4th and final round, that really, really plops on him.
I got a lot of heat online because somebody wrote that Dutch Mantell proposes Nakamura to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
Did I cover this last week?
We covered it 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was
okay.
It's not what you said at all.
But what I'm saying is, I'm a viewer too, and I know what I like. But I like to see different people. You do too. Everybody does. If you keep putting the same ones week after week after week, it becomes so boring that I think this is what I think, why the rating stays up. I think a lot of people go to sleep and they forget to change their TV to anything else. That's why the rating doesn't drop lower than it does sometimes. But Nakamura, okay, let me ask you something.
Go on.
Professional wrestling is not like football. Now, in football, you can sign a guy for 3 years because hoping that maybe the first year he'll get some playing time, but the second year he's improved quite a bit. He understands the system, and you still got him for 2 more years. But in wrestling, it's controlled by writers, and I've often said that wrestlers are like bananas on a shelf. They got a shelf life. And after so much, the bananas, you just can't eat them anymore, so you got to throw them out. That's what happens to wrestlers because they have a shelf life too. So if you don't do something with them big, like the first year, you can go back the second year and do something, but now they're old. They're like the old recliner in your living room. They're like a part of the furniture. It doesn't excite you anymore. But yet, I don't know why WWE, they have these contracts like that. I guess because they can afford them. But they never really, it makes sense on the performer side. But the writers, when they look at that, they got this guy for 3 years, and they're thinking, what are we going to do with this guy for 3 years? But back in the day, we didn't have a time limit. A guy was there till he wasn't anymore.
We didn't have contracts either.
No, it didn't have contracts, so you could do a big angle with him, and he'd get pissed off the next week and walk out. Then you've done this big angle, and all of a sudden the guy's gone. And that has happened not dozens of times
to you,
but hundreds of times. But keeping a guy alive after the first year, unless he's a top guy, is very hard to do.
I'm going to speed through the rest of this because we've just been talking about this for ages and we're still on the first question. We've got all the news and we've got a ton of questions. But I want to sort of bring up briefly, and I'll probably ask you this another episode at some point, So WWE Universal and WWE Champion Roman Reigns still has 2 belts. They've not been, as far as I can tell, unified yet. So therefore, when Raw came out with a 3rd heavyweight belt, that means that there's now 3 heavyweight world championships. And therefore, this 3rd belt on Raw has got to be the bronze place belt, because Roman has now got gold and silver. So now you've got all these chumps on Raw fighting for 3rd place, while Roman's got the top 2 podium spots, which I find weird. But we'll probably talk about that another day. So I want to talk about belts and stuff at some point. Also, the only other thing...
when they came out with that 3rd belt, nobody's a champion yet,
Nope.
and on Raw, right?
Nope.
Okay, so that would probably go to Cody, I would think.
I don't think so. I think a bad guy is going to win it. And then Cody will just start chasing again.
Well, okay. Now you're in my ballpark. Gunther.
There you go.
They could put it on Gunther. That'd be a good one. And I think Gunther versus Roman, I think that may be WrestleMania next year.